All right, Four Oaks, if you're joining us back home, we're at a pretty special place. We're here at Oxford. They call it Magdalen College. I call it Magdalen College. I don't know, they pronounce things differently. But we're on the very famous Addison's Walk, and this is where Lewis had a pretty influential conversation with Tolkien as they talked about the nature of Christianity and myth and these sorts of things. And the thing I would want to mention about Lewis's conversion is that his conversion in his mind was pretty linear, meaning he was an atheist and then he was a theist. And then God used this walk and some other things to kind of push him over the line to Christianity. And it's kind of hard, and maybe a lot of us, or you have the same sort of testimony where you can't really pinpoint the exact time that you were converted, all right? And maybe for you, it really was a Damascus Road experience, Acts 9, where you're going one way and God appears and says, you're going the wrong way, go this way, trust in me. For some of you, there may not be a time you can remember not being a Christian. It was so part of your experience. You were kind of, raised in a Christian household, and there's bells in the background, and could this not be more perfect than God's timing, right? But one of the things I would want to say that I think is important to understand theologically in God's eyes is that once a person is regenerated, they're regenerated. And they in turn place their faith in Christ. And we know that this is sudden, miraculous, monergistic, meaning it's initiated and oriented by God. The issue is that sometimes we as humans have a hard time understanding when that happens for us. And so if we're young or if we're in a hard place in life, it's only by looking back at our walk can we really identify, hey, that's when the light began to come on, okay? And for some of us, you might be able to pinpoint that exact moment. You might be like Lewis and say it came in stages, right? And it was a very linear, logical progression. I mean, what did Lewis call himself? The most reluctant convert, right, in all of England. But yet there is this sense in which we know pinpointing the exact moment of our conversion is not important, okay? I mean, it's important that we understand the gospel and faith. The issue before any of us and as Christians is always, who are you trusting right now, okay? The gospel never takes us back to look at our experience, okay, or the prayer we prayed or the aisle we walked to say, that's what saved me. What we know is that the gospel, Paul says, in which you stand, in which you were saved, and by which you are being saved. And so I think it's a much better use of our spiritual energy to think about where am I aligned today? Where is my heart today? Am I trusting in Christ today? God, keep me right here. God, I want to continue to pursue you. And I may not have total clarity. I may have no clarity at all about what's happened in the past or who I was at this point or that point. And I think that can be a great point of encouragement to us in our walks with Christ, that it's much, much more important about what we do now rather than trying to discern what has happened experientially in the past, because that's the nature of the gospel. I say it to parents with prodigals or family members that oftentimes we try to take some sort of assurance or comfort about people in our lives based upon what they did in the past. And ultimately, our assurance is based upon what Christ has done for us, not what we've done for Christ. And so it's always the right time to trust in Jesus. And as you're working with people, walking with people, ministering to people, serving people, and they're wrestling with those kinds of questions, we always bring them back to where the Apostle Paul brings everyone back in Colossians, right? And that's the Jesus. It's like the most important thing today is, who are you trusting? Who are your eyes fixed upon? Jesus wants to bring you along and is bringing you along. So I think if your conversion is a lot like Lewis or nothing like Lewis, or you can't even remember your conversion story per se, the most important thing is, are Are you trusting Jesus now? All right. So that's a little lesson from the life of C.S. Lewis and his conversion.